Last weekend, I was watching an old movie from the French filmmaker Jacques Tati. This is a movie Traffic, shot at the end of the 1960s. You should pay some attention to the wipers and how they reflect the personality of the person that is in the car. It's quite amazing to see how much you can show of the personality of someone with so few special effects. Watching this movie, I started to ask myself, what would be the most difficult thing for a person arriving straight from the 1960s to today to understand about the world today? And what might be the most difficult thing might be to understand, why do we still have traffic congestion? Why haven't we been able to solve this issue that we almost all face over the last 50 years? I decided to ask my daughter, so what do you think would be the most difficult thing for a person coming from the 60s to understand about the world today? And she thought for a second, and then she said to me, oh, that might be to understand that I have in my pocket a little device that gives me instant access to almost all the knowledge known to man. Oh, clever girl. And then she started to think again and then said, oh, no. What would be the most difficult thing to understand is, why do I spend all day on this device looking at cat photos and having arguments with other people on social media? Welcome to the Wyndham City 2016 Road Forum. My name is David Teague, and I'm the Infrastructure Director here at Wyndham. Before we start, I would like to give you some general information, and I think the video will stop by itself at some point. It's almost the end there. So toilets, if you need, you go down to the corridor, and on your left you will find the toilets. In case of an emergency, if you hear the alarm, please do come out through the front door, and the area to wait for the emergency services is the parking on your right. If you could be kind enough to put this little device on silence, that would be greatly appreciated. I would like to acknowledge the presence of Wyndham City Mayor, Councillor Egedich. We have other councillors. I see Councillor Heather Marcus, Councillor Peter Menard, Councillor Gautam Gupta, Councillor Bob Fairclough, somewhere. I saw him before, yes, here. On stage, we have Councillor Goodfellow, who is the transport portfolio holder at Wyndham City. David Teague is the acting director, transport and planning for our local branch of VicRoads. I never remember the name, North, East, something. David Jones is the manager of roads and traffic at RACV. John Story is the manager of strategic transport and infrastructure growth at Wyndham City. So it's now time for me to invite Councillor Goodfellow, who will officially open our road forum. Please welcome Councillor Goodfellow.
We want you, and you. If there's one thing that I want you to take away from tonight's forum, it is that the Wyndham City Council and the RACV need you, your family, and your friends to support us in our efforts for campaigning for better road infrastructure. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Councillor Goodfellow. As Mr Suter has already said, it's my pleasure to be hosting this tonight, and I thank you all for coming out. I'd like to first acknowledge the traditional custodians of land and Kulin Nation, on whose land we're meeting tonight, and pay my respects to their elders, both past and present. I won't go through all the dignitaries again, but I'd like to just acknowledge all my fellow councillors that are here tonight. Thank you for taking the time to come out, because it is important as councillors that we are here to listen to you, the community. As a transport portfolio holder, I know how vital transport is to you, the residents, and also the whole community. That is why I have asked for this forum to be convened tonight, so you, the residents and ratepayers of the City of Wyndham, have your chance to understand our road network and also to participate and ask questions of your council, VicRoads and the RACV. In recent surveys, you as a community have continually said to us that transport congestion is the #1 priority that you want fixed in the city. And as a result, we, your council, instigated in 2014 the Get Wyndham Moving campaign. Part of it, the campaign was designed to tackle traffic congestion and also transport issues within our growing city. And I know that this topic has been a topic around many a dinner table and also in the halls of power in Spring Street. Apart from reducing travel time for our residents and reducing the level of dependency on car travel, we must recognise the immense need for transport infrastructure to keep up with Wyndham's population and growth, both now and into the future. So this forum tonight is a great opportunity for us to have that conversation on what Council has done so far to address the traffic congestion and transport issues, but more importantly, what is planned for the future by your Council and VicRoads. It is important for us as councillors and myself as your portfolio holder to hear and listen to you, the ratepayers of Wyndham. We have invited guests, as Mr Suter has said, from VicRoads and the RACV. They are here so you can hear from them what is happening in regards to our road and transport network and how we can work together to address the issues we face as a growing community now and into the future. But also, they are here so they can hear from you, the ratepayers of Wyndham, firsthand, the people at the coalface, the people that are in the midst of traffic congestion day in and day out. We know that Melbourne's West is the fastest growing population local government area in Australia, and our population by 2031 will exceed 1.2 million people. Unfortunately, governments over the last 2 decades have lagged behind in infrastructure provision. This is a huge and challenging area for us as a council and us as a community. The Victorian Auditor General's report, tabled in August 2013, Developing Transport Infrastructure and Services for the Population Growth Areas, and I refer, as I say to my fellow councillors all the time, page 27, it clearly shows that Wyndham has a shortfall on road infrastructure funding mounting from $800 million to $1.3 billion. I'll say those numbers again, $800 million to $1.3 billion of shortfall funding. This report from the Auditor General is very clear. We have a huge roads deficit problem here in the City of Wyndham. And this is, I highlight this every day, and I know my fellow councillors highlight this at every opportunity that we have when we speak to government ministers, both federally and state. With our continuing rapid growth, I have real concerns that this gap will only increase despite recent projects. And I, for one, cannot accept this as a councillor or as a ratepayer of the City of Wyndham, and I ask that you, the residents, do not accept this as well. We are seeking improvements to the public transport and road network while at the same time trying to increase active travel rates and changes of travel mode amongst our people. Council over the past years, biggest spend has been on road infrastructure projects and upgrades, such as Dolby's Road, Sneeds Road, Tarneet Road, Leeds Road, Black Forest Road, Boundary Road and Shores Road. These are just a few of the iceberg, or the tip of the iceberg. In 2015-16 budget, we have allocated over $23 million for road upgrades and projects. I, along with my fellow councillors, understand that there are many other roads that need to be improved or upgraded. However, most of these roads fall under the responsibility of the state government. For example, Princess Freeway, Point Cook Road, Sayers Road, Derrimut Road, Duncan's Road, the Land Road, Palmer's Road, Old Geelong Road, Forsyth Road, the list goes on. They are all state government responsibilities. Public transport and buses, trains are also the responsibility of the state. However, I can say that we have been working collaboratively with the PTV over the years to ensure that we can deliver a better, more well-connected transport service for our people. I know that this may not offer solace for our residents and our local businesses who are already frustrated with the congestion and lack of connectivity in our transport network. I know, as my fellow councillors know, you want it fixed and you want it fixed now. So understanding this is why we as a council have been very active in our advocacy through our Get Wyndham Moving campaign and in the development of the Wyndham Integrated Transport Strategy. Both these projects will and have addressed the challenges that we will face into the future. The Get Wyndham Moving campaign, as I said earlier, has also delivered real projects on the ground to improve our congestion and help us free up some of our road network. We've had some very good successes with this program. Last year, the 2.5 million Leeds and Palmer's Road intersection upgrade was completed because we as a council contributed over $200,000 to this project. Works on the $6 million Palmer's Road upgrade, where again, your council contributed over half of the funds, $3.1 million, to get this project up and running. So as the portfolio holder, I can say, with my hand on my heart, that this council can and is doing everything we can to deliver works to ease the pain that you, the residents, are facing. As I said, we have advocated for bus upgrades on the bus network to accompany the opening of the regional rail, which opened in 2015. On that note, I'm very pleased to advise that while patronage across Metropolitan Melbourne fell by over 8%, patronage on bus increases in Wyndham rose by 14.9% over the same 9-month period. This is testament to you, the residents that are willing to embrace change. So thank you. If I was the Transport Minister, for one moment, I would actually welcome these figures, and I would be encouraged by the figures showing the uplift in public transport usage. And I would ask the Treasurer, please Mr Treasurer, allocate some more public funding for public works and road infrastructure in Wyndham. In the lead up to the last election, this council campaigned for, and the Andrews government committed $1 billion over 8 years for the outer suburban arterial road fund. What is disappointing from our point of view as a council is that we are yet to see this funding. And we hope, and we hold out hope, that maybe, just maybe, in this coming state budget, that this funding may start to come through to Wyndham so we can actually get on with the job of duplicating our road network. As a growing municipality, we definitely face our several challenges. And as I said earlier, it is about hearing now how we together can tackle the road and transport challenges we have in Wyndham. How we can work in partnership with VicRoads and the RACV. But more importantly, how we work with you, the ratepayers of the City of Wyndham, in getting road networks done and advocating for more funding from the other two tiers of government in Australia. Ladies and gentlemen, we are very keen as a council to hear from our speakers here tonight, which have given up their time, but also we are very keen to hear from you, the ratepayers, the people at the coalface, the people that are stuck in the traffic day after day. So there will be a Q&A session later in the evening where you will have the opportunity to raise these questions with our guest speakers, myself and council officers. I thank you again, ladies and gentlemen, for taking the time to come to this important forum.
Thank you, Councillor, for setting the context of this forum. So we move on now to the presentation from our different speakers. The first presentation will be given by David Teague, the Director of Transport and Planning from the regional branch of VicRoads. Still don't remember the entire full name of it. Metro Northwest, thank you. So David has spent most of his career at VicRoads, leading teams to deliver significant infrastructure. In 2015, he coordinated a cross-agency presentation to the Department of Economic Development, Jobs, Transport and Resources. Please welcome David.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, councillors, and thank you everyone for giving up your time to be here tonight. I want to start just by echoing some of your comments. Actually, we agree there is a shortfall in investment in this area, but we agree there's a lot of stuff that needs to be done. There's no argument there. The question is how we go about it, and how we can get the best outcome for everyone in a challenging state environment. So it's really great to hear the lady talking on. I can honestly say that when we do engage with Wyndham, I can't play favourites, but the Wyndham is certainly one of the best councils to work with. Their approach is really positive and always moving forward about how we might get things done. So it's a credit to the council and their approach. Well done. I'm not sure how much or what you think of VicRoads. I say somewhat nicely standing up here. But you may not know that VicRoads is undergoing a little bit of a cultural shift. Our vision, that you may have come across, is about making lives better. And that's about journeys that are safe, reliable, efficient and sustainable. It's helping you get to where you need to. Can I write that? Care share dares out there, and that's partly because we're going to judge our performance at VicRoads by your experience. That's what we're setting ourselves up for, so we want to hear from you. If your experience isn't a good one, in that your journeys aren't safe, they're not reliable, they're not efficient, we're here to help you achieve that. We need to show you that we care about your experience, we care about your safety. We need to share our thoughts and our knowledge with you so you understand where we're coming from. And then we want to show you that we're daring to tackle some of those tough challenges, because they are tough challenges. So what I wanted to cover today, and dragging me off from my time elapses, I'll give you a little bit of a network picture about what's happening a little bit outside of Wyndham, across Melbourne and the state. Talk a little bit about VicRoads and our approach in Metro Northwest region. Some customer feedback that we're collecting along the way, and some of the things that we're doing to work with Wyndham on the next steps. Just give you a moment to read that. Some of you may have seen it before, but take a moment to read it. Would anyone like to hazard a guess when that was sent? I think it was this morning on 3/11?
1970.
1970? That's a good one. Anyone else?
Every year for the last 50 years.
I need to give you a prize because that's actually, I think it's equally applicable today. I don't actually came from Melbourne Metro Planners expanding in 1954. Pretty close. We could have expanded in a few years, but you're absolutely spot on. In some ways, we don't have a lot of new challenges. This is just showing a measure of congestion from a model that we use to assess the network. Over there in 2011, that's the way it was performing. And those red dots, or those red lines, are just a measure of where it will be congested. That 2031 model actually shows a really billions and billions and billions of dollars of investment. That's factored into that. And what that really is telling us is even with a lot of money, things will still get worse. There needs to be a range of approaches to change the experience. Some of that's about what you spoke about before, Councillor, with public transport and active transport shifts. But building, we can't, that's the phrase that we've been using a little bit lately, we can't build our way out of congestion. Now that's different to saying that we've got a mature network, but when we have got a mature network, we can't build our way out of congestion that is there. You may not already know this, but if you can see that dotted blue line, the councils, there's around 10 councils on the far side of that line. 50% of the population growth will occur to 2046 will occur in those councils, but only 30% of the employment growth. We already know we've got a problem where, if I just go back a step, in inner Melbourne we have 10% of the population. In the middle ring of Melbourne we've got 40% of the population living, and in outer we have 50%. But the jobs are a third. We're already set up in a way where we need people to travel to get to the jobs, to get to services. That's why we need to do things like help the employment clusters like East Werribee succeed, because we need people not just to travel to the city to find good high-paying jobs. We need them to go to East Werribee. We need to use the capacity that is in the opposite direction. We're looking at enviously as we're travelling into town. We need to utilise that and have some people the other way to get to jobs as well. Now I just wanted to share with you this graph that's helped us with our thinking about the way the network's working. Down the bottom is what we call our journey to work trip density. So right over this end, it's something the Melbourne CBD. Melbourne CBD is right down the bottom right-hand side as you're looking at it. That means there's almost 100,000 trips a day going to that destination. But what we see on the other line, so going up, well there you go, you've got the little mouse pointer. Do that. Can you hear me if I yell a bit louder like this? Oh, if I do that, I might be even better. Hello, there we go. So down here, where we've got Melbourne CBD, we've got an awful lot of people travelling to Melbourne CBD, but we've got relatively low car use. It's down around the 20-30%. Whereas up here in Truganina, we've got 90% of people using their car to get to work. That's because there's a lot less people going there, and it's a lot harder to provide a public transport or a different way to get there. Thank you. So we've separated that. We think there's about 80% of work trips are in regional Victoria, and 30% of the Melbourne Metro trips are in that blue box. Right? We also know that around 30% of the trips are in that red box down there. The remainder are in that purple box in the middle, and that's where we've got to do a lot of work to help people get around. We know that people are travelling further to get where they need to. As we spread out, we've got to travel further to get to the services to get to your job. So we know that demand's increased by almost 17%, but the supply, the number of new lanes, hasn't increased by that amount. It's only increased by around about 5%. That's including all the investment across Melbourne up to 2012. So does that mean we're getting more out of what we've got, or is the service level dropping? In the outer suburbs, we know people are travelling further and the travel choices can be limited. In the middle suburbs, we've got a challenge because we've got the the people from the outer suburbs trying to go through, as well as those people getting to where they need to. And in the inner suburbs, we've got a challenge too, where there's some behaviour that's still about driving, that is congesting other tasks like freight, and helping deliver the coffee beans that people want to get to so quickly. And in regional Victoria, we've got other challenges where we see population centres shrinking, people contracting to some of the bigger centres, an increase in regional freight growth, and a challenge we have in having enough money to maintain the network. Sorry?
3 minutes?
3? Oh, crikey, I've got to hurry up. So, in terms of our focus areas, we really want to concentrate on the capacity of our major transport links, integrated land use, road space allocation, connectivity in the growth area, and operational expenditure. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that we need to build a lot of stuff. Some of it is about building things, but we need to measure ourselves between small investments, big investments, but then using what we've got better, and also making some land use and planning changes to help get longer term behaviours embedded as well. We've been using something called the movement in place framework, and the purpose of that is to talk, it's a concept that talks about the different roles that the roads play. Sometimes VicRoads hasn't thought enough about place. Places are really important too. People want to go to places, they don't want to go to freeways. They want to go to a place. Right? We need to make sure places are great. There's places where people go have their coffee. It's where they do their shopping. It's where they want to take their kids. It's where they want to get to. So we need to recognise that more, and we need to talk about that more and protect those more. That might mean we have to use other corridors to do more of the movement work. So the way we're talking about doing that more is by listening to you, listening in real time where we can, identifying gaps between what you say you want and what we can deliver. We did some research recently and it told us 60% of people said they would use public transport more if it was more frequent, more accessible and cheaper. 40% of people said they would cycle more if there was more paths, if they felt safer basically, there was more paths and they could go where they want to. Same with walking, 30% of people said they'd walk more if they felt safer. We've got to help that happen. Right? And that was pretty consistent across all parts of Melbourne and regions. One of the interesting things that we also did was how to manage demand. We asked people what they recommended. The majority of people said allocate more road space to vehicles that carry more people. We've got a lot of single occupancy cars for a whole range of reasons. If we can do more things where we could get more occupancy or turn more road space over to buses, for example, to be able to move more people with less of that. In the interest of time, I won't go through too much of these, but these are the challenges that we need to engage more around. So how we improve the capacity of a major transport network. How do we make those clusters work? East Werribee, as the example, is moving from that side of the arrow all the way here, which says there's going to be a lot more people trying to get there, but still a really high percentage of people doing that by car. We've got to work out how to deal with that. And the way to address that will be the transition of land use. It will be the recognising there will be movement to and from that activity centre. We've got to protect the movement within and the movement around it. As I said before, we know we've got a problem with connectivity in growth areas. We know there's 1 million more people by 2031, a largely and growing backlog, and we need to talk more about that. We've got to use what we've got better. So what are we doing? I mentioned before we've got a really strong relationship with Wyndham. We've got a really happy and proud of. You know these things have been delivered down the Palmers Road, widening, including council's $3.1 million contribution. Yes, Werribee Employment Precinct works $70 million worth of Metro. We know the level crossings are coming from Cherry and Werribee. We want to do more work with Wyndham to help get the maximum out of that, not just for removing the level crossing, and how do we get some of that land use change around that level crossing opportunity as well. There's other things too. It's been really positive to see with Wyndham partnership approach to getting Derrimut Road, Leeks Road, Sayers Road ready for a business case submission. That's been tremendous. Doing some work to plan an investment logic map with DTF about how we're going to achieve our planned development objectives around the Hoppers Crossing precinct. It's been some really good discussion with council what's happening, as well as the land road signal settlement. And that's there's an error in this. It shouldn't be the 17,800 submission. But these are the projects that are put up for consideration at the moment. So Palms Road, Doherty's Road, Fitzgerald Road, Doherty's Road intersection. Unfortunately, in a couple of weeks' time we'll know the outcome of that. And we need to show you that we're going to continue to advocate for projects like this and engage with you more about what you're seeing, what your observations are of the network and how we might work to improve this. We don't want to engage on solutions per se, but we want to have that discussion about what the problem is, and there will be a range of different things that we could do to help fix it. I think I've probably gone well over time. I'll move behind. So yeah, pardon me, as I said, really about customer focus, influencing behaviours, having that two-way discussion. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Always interesting to have the bigger picture. We are all driving around and we tend to drive on the same road every day and we see the same problem at the same spot. But having a broader vision really gives the dimension of the issue that we are speaking of tonight. So our next speaker is another David. David Jones is the manager of Roads and Traffic at RACV. David leads the Roads and Traffic team that develops and promotes RACV policies and information in the broad areas of road safety, transport infrastructure, and government relations for the benefits of RACV members. Please welcome David.
So thank you, Mayor, Councillor Hegovich, Councillor Goodfellow, the other councillors of the City and the Executive team for the chance to speak to you again. I was last here speaking at this forum at the launch of the Get Wyndham Moving campaign 2 years ago. I think David Hughes was probably substantially funnier than I'll be back then or perhaps tonight. And I don't have a presentation to give to you. I'm just going through some relevant points and hopefully my words will keep you alert and interested tonight. So we know that most people in the City of Wyndham are struggling with access to services and mobility issues. One major part of that is the time and cost of transport and getting to study, to work, places of recreation or worship, places to go shopping and seeing family and friends, all things that we need to do. Across Australia, we know that about 16% of average household expenditure is spent on transport. Imagine what else you could do with 16% of your income if it wasn't spent on transport. As the costs of public transport and owning and operating one or more motor vehicles. In some households it could be much higher. For people with dependent family members, whether it be children, older family members, people who don't want to drive, people that can't drive, there's the burden of time for them in finding public transport, accessing community transport services, or the burden on others in ferrying them around. We know full well that good public transport, good roads and good bicycle facilities are absolutely necessary. We know more people need to be able to walk and ride safely, but also to find jobs locally, so they don't have to travel so far. These are the fundamentals that give people accessibility to what they need for a good, vibrant and healthy family, person in themselves and for the community as a whole. Now, back in 2012, RACV released the Growing Pains in Outer Melbourne and Geelong report. And I think it's a report that I mentioned when I last spoke here 2 years ago. That report documented a massive $8 billion plus backlog of road and public transport infrastructure and services across the growth fronts of Melbourne and Geelong. So not the inner and middle suburbs, just the outer suburbs of Melbourne, Geelong and Surf Coast, which has some of Geelong's growth in it. Now, at that time, back in 2012, we estimated that the City of Wyndham alone, the backlog was at least $1 billion, which the Auditor General, I think he said, came to 800 million to 1.3 billion. Now, we didn't cost local bus services in that. We didn't have the ability to reliably do that. But we had things like railway station upgrades, public transport interchanges and road projects. Just the major roads, not the local roads. So we suspect that that's a massive underestimate, given the growth and the lack of investment by subsequent governments into the growth communities of Melbourne and Geelong. In 2014, the RACV Red Spot Survey again highlighted the abysmal situation that is Point Cook Road and the access to the Princess Freeway. For a long time, the plan to address the issue has been to force people to head west to Palmers Road in order to head east along the Princess Freeway, and that's insane. We understand there's about 3.75 million to provide extra lanes on Palmers Road, but I'm not quite sure how that's being spent, but the previous speakers have referred to about 3 million, I think. But no, money has been allocated to provide extra facilities on Palmers Road, and hopefully that will start soon. But nothing's been done about Point Cook Road, despite it being one of the most dominated red spots since 2012 in the Red Spot Survey. It's made the top 10 for the last 2 surveys, and the surveys are only held every second year, and no one has taken any action to fix it. Now, other red spots are being addressed. We know that delays and safety issues in this section of Old Geelong Road and Forsyth Road have been fixed with the traffic signals there. We know in other parts of the city, like Ben Iris, the Burke Road level crossing has been removed. In Alphington, the duplication of the Bridge and Chandler Highway is shortly to be removed. And by 2018, work will be underway on 34 level crossings across the city, but we understand none from the City of Wyndham. Now, the next Red Spot survey will launch in just over a month, and we think it'll be the biggest ever. That's if it succeeds in getting some airtime against this other bothersome thing called a federal election. But with so much work at other red spots, it could also be the most change in the top 10, because we know that when announcements are made and or work commences on red spots, people stop nominating them. And they start thinking about what are the next issues in their community. So we think this could be quite an interesting red spot survey when the results are released in September, through the volume of entries, we hope, and also the change in what has become important to people in growing communities, and because some other works have been done. And separately to that, in March this year, we ran a survey of how and why people travel in growth communities, the people living within growth areas, including your own, as well as people that travel to them or through them. We're expecting 3,000 to 4,000 submissions. We received 17,000 submissions. It's clear that people have some feelings about the transport situation on road and public transport, walking and cycling in the growth communities of Melbourne. We were thinking it would take weeks to analyse, but now thinking it would take months because of the sheer volume of the responses. But there are clearly issues that need to be heard. Part of my role is to give people a voice about particularly road issues, but transport issues as a whole, and to empower them to speak out, and we do that by collecting data such as these surveys. Now, like everyone else, we can only hope that next week's state budget has commitments that deliver on Labor's substantial promises for transport in outer suburban communities. And we think it's really important that there are more announcements about bus and train services in Wyndham and other communities. A package of works to upgrade roads and a bigger commitment to road maintenance to slow the deterioration of the roads we already have. It doesn't make sense investing in new roads and allowing the ones we have to fall to pieces. There needs to be investment in all of these things. And shortly after that will be the federal budget. And council officers can speak more about funding programs direct to local government. But one that we're always interested in is black spot funding, which is the funding used to fix accident or crash locations. And there's always a very long list of locations that need to be fixed. We don't care whether black spot money, federal money, is spent on local roads or state-owned roads. At the end of the day, it's about saving lives and reducing serious injury to the people of Victoria or people visiting Victoria. We don't care who manages the road. We're also calling upon the federal government to spend more on road safety on major highways like Geelong Road or Princess Highway or Freeway. And do other, commit to whoever the next federal government is, which may not be obviously the current federal government, to complete both widening the M80, the Western Ring Road or Metropolitan Ring Road, including the EJ Whitney Bridge and the sections south of that many of you I'm sure would use, as well as also committing to starting work on the North East Link, which is linking the Metropolitan Ring Road at Greensboro down to the Eastern Freeway or East Link by whatever route turns out to be the best once it's been fully investigated. And that could be quite important for you here in Wyndham as well, because some of the, for example, the interstate freight traffic coming in on the Calder Freeway or the Western Highway at the moment could be tempted to turn right and come down the Western Ring Road and over the Westgate Freeway to reach the southeast of Melbourne. Whereas if the ring road was completed, some of that traffic may well turn left and actually head around the north of the city through the new route, take some traffic away from the same roads that you may want to use as well. You may be surprised that RACV strongly supports the Melbourne Metro project. Public transport is vital to our members. We know that. On the Roads and Traffic Manager, we also have a public transport manager, exactly the same team and resources as I have. We're very serious about public transport. Melbourne Metro is critical, you may not believe, but it is critical to future train services across Melbourne, including the lines that you have through here. In conjunction with level crossing removal, signalling upgrades and higher capacity trains, the long-term vision as we understand it is that there'll be many more trains running through the city. So many of those train services that come out of the eastern suburbs in the morning will go straight through the city and into the western suburbs and vice versa. And trains that start on the lines in the western suburbs and the northern suburbs will run through the city to the southeast, and Melbourne Metro is part of that, and it's a vital first step. So we strongly support it because it's good for the CBD and good for the city as a whole. But I'm sure that many people don't want to go to the CBD every day, if at all. That's why cross-town and local bus routes are so important. Bus network reform is essential so that more buses are running more direct more often. That could mean that local buses may not run so close to everyone's house by winding through all the streets to be close to everyone's front door, if you're even lucky enough to have a bus service at all, I should mention. But if the routes are ironed out so they're more direct, it could mean that, well, they're quicker and they're more frequent. Buses can be better utilised without substantially increasing the size of the fleet. And that's a good trade-off if more people can access the service, and it's more appealing for more people to use. I'll also just cover or mention the Western Distributor project. I know it's a very sensitive issue for many people in the western suburbs and in Melbourne in particular. We support the project in principle. It's a much better project than the government's Westgate Distributor project that was an election promise. When completed, it will provide medium or long-term improvements to the road network to address issues such as there being an alternative to the Westgate Bridge when an incident happens on it or when incident occurs to it, as well as an alternative route of the largest trucks to and from the port, and get some of the trucks on inner west streets off those streets onto a separate road in and out of the port. Now, last week I raised the issue of disruption to the Westgate Freeway, arising from the works with the CityLink tunnel widening and the Western Distributor. I was assured that the works will be staged from 2018 for the Western Distributor, and the actual work on the Westgate Freeway will not take 6 years that the project as a whole will take. As you'd expect, tunnels and elevated roads being built as part of the Western Distributor project are much more complex than widening the Westgate Freeway alone. So yes, there will be disruption. The construction companies, in fact the design hasn't even been finalised, they're one of the construction companies appointed, but at this stage they're not expecting the disruption of the Westgate Freeway to be that full period for most of its length. I strongly encourage you to get out and participate in a consultation. Information sessions are underway, and there will be a full environmental effects statement next year, I believe. So just to wrap up, for the current works arising from the changes to the Baldy Bridge ramps, which are due to finish in July 2017, as well as the Western Distributor, we have called upon the government to put more trains onto the train lines, so that people can make that choice and use public transport rather than driving, and that option is available to them. We've also asked them to have a look at the traffic diversion routes to see what can be done to squeeze the most out of those roads. For example, we know some of the traffic diversion routes that are the official detours in place at present still have cars parked along them and there are lanes taken out basically by one single parked car. when people like yourselves try and get to and from the city. We also call for toll compensation, but the government, the state government has ruled that out because it's simply unaffordable for the duration of the work and the number of people that use the roads. So thank you for the time that you've given me to speak to you today. We'll be very active in coming months with the Red Spot survey being released in just over a month's time, the state and federal budgets, and the federal election. During the federal election, we'll be keeping people up to date with announcements by candidates and parties about transport matters using our website, RACV electionmonitor.com.au. It's in the Royal Auto that, if you're a member, you'll receive next week. And Red Spot Survey will be at redspotsurvey.com.au, which will also be thrown in Royal Auto the month after. So thank you again. I certainly appreciate the opportunity, and I'll happily enjoy, I hope, answering questions shortly. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Interesting to hear about how passionate people are when it comes to transport, with the number of people participating in your survey. And to hear you explain that the solution is only an integrated one. One simple means of transport cannot solve the issue that we are facing, so it's roads, public transport, have to come together to help the existing situation. Our next speaker is John Story. John Story is the Manager of Strategic Transport and Infrastructure Growth at Wyndham City. John is responsible for the planning and traffic engineering across the municipality. Prior to working at Wyndham, John built his experience working in the private sector as a consultant and for the state government in transport. Please welcome John.
Thanks, David, for the introduction. Thank you, everybody, for turning up tonight. It shows that there's a passion out there about transport and our road network. I'd like to thank Councillor Goodfellow for turning up tonight. I think it's a very worthwhile exercise, and I'd like to acknowledge our councillors who've come on to show support for the event tonight as well. So tonight I'm going to talk about, in three key parts, some of the stuff I'll talk about will mirror some of the things that our earlier speakers have spoken about, but I'll put a bit more of a council angle to it. Some background about the issues of traffic and transport, and then at a holistic level, council's view about how we think we best tackle it from a strategic sense in terms of the overall transport system. And then I'll talk a bit about some of our key road priorities. David mentioned earlier some of those that we're working with VicRoads in partnership, and I'll touch on those as well. So that's a map of Wyndham, if you couldn't figure it out. And the red circles are slowly popping up. That's showing my capability and animation on PowerPoint. They are key major growth areas in Wyndham. And the reason I'm highlighting those is that leads to significant population growth, which I'll talk about in a minute. Those are the precinct structure plans that have either been gazetted or will go through the process of gazetting, which provide mud maps for the future development of Wyndham. Wyndham North is accompanied Wyndham West, and in the central part of Wyndham there is the East Werribee employment precinct. What's that going to do? 2 years after council amalgamations, which some of you will remember if you were in this part of the world, Wyndham had a population of a little bit over 70,000, so relatively small. It's exploded since then. The previous slide I showed those growth areas. Well, we're predicting, as a census this year, there will be over 200,000 residents here in Wyndham. If that keeps going, by 2036 we'll be not far under 400,000 residents. Now that's just in Wyndham. So as other numbers have been spoken about earlier, sort of more broadly in Western Melbourne, that's just Wyndham. And those people have to get about. one of my favourite pictures. As David talked about, I've been in transport for my entire career, and I love these sorts of pictures. That is from the state government's model on transport. It was used for the Western Distributor. That is what's called the base year model. The base year in this model is 2011, so they worked these off censuses. We haven't got a 2016 one, but this paints a picture of, on an average day, how long it takes you to drive from anywhere in Wyndham to the CBD. The bluer the colour, the better. The redder the colour, the worse it is. And you can see that there's a lot of red in Wyndham. That doesn't count for the bad days when there's incidents and the network is cactus. This is just a typical average day. So 5 years ago, we're seeing quite a lot of Wyndham where it's an hour one way to get into the city.
John, which colour's red? Because we can't see it on the code there. Which colour's an hour?
So the hour is the second, the fourth from the bottom, so it's sort of an orangey red. So if you look at the sort of where the word Werribee is, there's no pointer on this, so I can't point. Where Werribee is shown on the, if you move just to the left of that, pick up, yeah, that's an hour travel time. No, that's okay. You can't, it's a picture, sorry. They didn't give us any more details. And that is what it'll be like in about 15 years' time. So that dark purple, and there'll be a significant amount of Wyndham's population in that dark purple zone. You might recall earlier the growth, the precinct growth area in the west. That is at least 75 minutes one way. That's on a typical day. So again, not if there's an incident that's causing, some of the things we've experienced in the last month with the works. And that factors in all the various road projects that they're thinking of doing. So this is obviously a great concern to council. For a number of years now, we've also been listening to you and hearing that transport is the top issue here, and we've implemented a program of council we've undertaken. So David earlier put up some outputs from a model that talked about roads and road capacity. We've done a little more simplistic way of trying to get that information by putting counters out and literally counting the number of cars that are going over these sections of road. Where all those red lines are, and this is 5 years ago, those red lines are key roads in Wyndham where the number of cars that are on the road is more than the road is designed to carry. So we call that the volume capacity ratio, and it's greater than 1. What does that mean? Long queues, it takes you forever to get there. If there's an incident, the traffic conditions basically break down. And we've been doing this every year, and I'll show you the data from last year. They're all still there after 5 years. If the little animations click, if I click again, no. I'm going to port it over. There are a couple of additional ones on there. In particular, if you look to the north of the image there, Leaks Road. Many of you here will know the problem having Leaks Road. That's a new addition to that picture, but many of them have been there for 5 years. That's one of the things we're continuing to advocate to the state government. We do work in partnership with VicRoads to try and examine a number of these roads. I'll talk about some of those later, to really get some action. As you can see, for 5 years, those roads have been well over capacity. In some instances, up to 2 times over capacity. I think both the guys earlier touched on level crossings, another important issue here in Wyndham. Council again does regular surveys of these, and those very technical graphs that I've created provide you a snapshot of how long those boom gates are down in the peak hour, and that one is Cherry Street. So in the AM peak, for 19 minutes, that's our surveys that we've done, which we had somebody sitting there counting the minutes as those gates are down. It's closed at peak hour. In the PM peak, it's 14 minutes. It's a little bit better than what it was about a year ago. So since the RRL has gone in, those B-line trains are no longer going through there, so it has helped a little bit. And that's an old Geelong Road in Hoppers Crossing. So you can see about a third of the time those gates are down. And that's it. Both of those graphs I point out, that's a typical day. We all know from time to time the rats can get in and chew the cables and the gates get stuck. But that's a typical day. So what are we trying to do about it? We are in the process of developing an integrated transport strategy. It's been going for a while now through a number of stages. Last year we put out our policy position. We've been consulting with the community over the journey of a policy and a strategy. We've had something in the order of 140 submissions over those two pieces of work which we're working through right now. And that will be our vision for transport in Wyndham. I won't read that out to you word for word, but I'll let you just absorb that. It's got all the important aspects: providing transport options, efficient transport, safe transport. I've got 3 minutes left to speed up. The policy component has a number of themes: land use and transport integration, active transport, public transport, freight, road network, road safety, other transport modes. That was the things that we just couldn't find another bucket for, like ferries, electric cars, because they will be an important part of the transport system in the future: electric cars, driverless vehicles, transport demand management, and education and promotion. I'll skip through this because I want to talk about some other things. Public transport is one of the key areas. The reason I wanted to just touch on that a bit more is a big part of the public transport system here in Wyndham is on the road network, which is our bus system. We had a significant investment last year in our bus network, but more needs to be done. Given the growth that we're experiencing, new areas are springing up every day, and they get beyond the reach of the bus network that we have. The other problem that buses face is, you recall from some of those early slides, with those roads that are over capacity, our buses get stuck in those roads. And people hate sitting on buses stuck in traffic. So we're advocating for higher frequencies, longer spans of service, and another important part of the PT system that will help the road network in the future is getting coordination between modes better than they are. There's nothing more annoying than getting on your bus. You think you're doing the right thing, you turn up at the train station, and there goes the train. You might have to wait 15 minutes. But it's worse if it's the other way. When you get off the train and you see the bus depart, you wonder whether the driver did that deliberately, but you've got to wait half an hour for your next bus. Those sorts of occurrences don't help our road congestion, because people are not going to be encouraged to use PT. That, is there a label on it? It did get transferred across. That is, in Plan Melbourne, the principal freight network. I wanted to touch on that. Freight is an important use of the road system. We have a couple of key elements to our strategy concerning freight. One is that over the long term, for long haul freight, we'd like to see more put on rail to free up road space. And the other thing that's vitally important is freight that's in local areas and local freight. We want to ensure that it's sensitive to residential amenity, because it's an increasing problem. Deliveries occurring on streets, so forth, where trucks literally are stopping and unloading in residential streets. That can clog up our roads. So it's an important aspect we're exploring in the strategy. Roads, that's why we're all here tonight. In our transport strategy, we've got our priorities as we set them over the short term for investment in roads. The red lines, if you can see those, are the most important ones. Yellow, the next important, and the green, third priority. That includes roads that are council roads, and as Councillor Goodfellow talked about earlier, there are a number of roads here that are actually the state government responsibility. And investment in those require partially with VicRoads, and then crossing our fingers and toes, the state will actually stump up the money come budget time. So what are our immediate road priorities? I think you all want to hear our view on that. That is a picture of one of our top priorities, which is the Armstrong Road Ice and Road Link. We've spoken earlier about the significant growth in the west of Wyndham. That will put huge pressure on a number of those roads that are at capacity now as people need to move in an easterly direction to get to jobs and services. As our earlier speakers have spoken about, there is a mismatch between population growth and job growth, so there's still going to be an increasing number of people who need to travel east, particularly CBD. This road link will provide a relief valve direct to the freeway, so it's one of our top priorities. We've been working very closely with VicRoads and the MPA to try and get that link designed, and then we'll be seeking funding submission to get that link put in. Some other short-term priorities we're working on. I was at a talk last night at the Rotary Club at Werribee, and car parking at railway stations was a big issue that was flagged last night. We're working closely with PTB to look at increasing parking capacity, particularly at Williams Landing Station. Some of the road projects we're working closely with VicRoads on, duplication of Leaks Road between Fitzgerald and Gerrard, and many of these will align with those red lines that I had up earlier. Duplication of Derrick Road between Sayers and Doherty's, and the duplication of Doherty's Road from Fitzgerald to Grieve. The widening of Palmers Road south of the freeway and duplication of Palmers from Sayers to Boundary. We also are keen to see the duplication of Sayers Road from Morris to Palmers. And importantly, we're very keen to see those level crossings that the government is committed to removed. We haven't yet got an ironclad commitment from the state on when they'll actually put shovels in the ground. We're not even totally sure what design solution they'll ultimately use. I'm sure you've all heard the government's fun times with Skyrail. We don't know what they're actually proposing here as yet. We're also very interested in a level crossing that's not technically in Wyndham, but just outside, which is the Aviation Road level crossing. And the reason we're interested in that is it can benefit our residents greatly if the design solution we're after is implemented, which is direct freeway connections on Point Cook Road to the Princes as part of that solution. And our discussions to date with the state government, particularly the Level Crossing Authority, have been quite positive in that regard, and we strongly believe that will help that road link if those direct